Be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. This video is made possible by our loyal Patreon supporters. Visit patreon.com. And if you haven't already, follow us on social media for tips, tutorials, giveaways, and daily inspiration. Hello and welcome to the WellnessPlus Podcast. I'm your host, Corrina Rachel, and I'm joined today by Jill Stevenson. She's a nutrition coach here in Austin at a medical facility called Adult Care of Austin. So she's here today to tell us about her weight loss journey and how, after a lot of different diets, you've kind of arrived at the ketogenic diet as your ideal.
And it's my lifestyle now, for sure.
So can you kind of, give us a little background as to, where your weight issues began?
Sure. Well, to start with, my mother struggled with her weight her whole life. So growing up, there was always lots of sweets around, lots of desserts, lots of carbs, right? And I never went to bed at night without a big bowl of ice cream or popcorn. So my weight issues started very, very young. And so as I came out of high school and got out into the world on my own, I wanted to really get my weight down. And this was a time when people were not overweight to speak of. So my first program I ever tried was Dr. Atkins. His book had just come out. It was the 70s, and it made sense to me, and I followed the program, and I lost a lot of weight. Okay. And I felt really good. I don't know why I got off of that program. I just thought of it more as a diet and just a way to get some weight off. Right. We don't think about what it's actually doing in our body, why it's so good for us, etc. So, of course, I put my weight back on and then struggled for years doing everything from working out, a lot of working out at the gym, which really doesn't help with weight loss, but we thought it did. Weight Watchers, several different times with Weight Watchers. And, of course, they change their program up every few years, so you keep going back to see if the new one will work. And they all worked. I did Jenny Craig, South Beach Diet, followed some of the other fad-type things that came out, the trending things whenever they would come out. We always got the book, read it, and tried it. So of all of them, I think Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig were, at that time, my best. I always had success with them. I always got my weight down, felt great. But somehow it was not a way in which I could maintain. Right? And then Weight Watchers, of course, went to point systems, and nothing about that made any sense to me. You put some point system on a food product, and you're not learning anything. I mean, it really comes down to understanding nutrition and what that does inside your body.
Right. And then having something sustainable that you can maintain.
It's the challenge in our society today, still.
Right.
Because there's still a lot of mixed messages about what is nutrition, what should you do, and people still are going to programs where they lose a lot of weight and then they put it all back on.
Right.
And I've seen it a lot.
And just you've brought a picture here of yourself. It's hard to believe because looking at you now, you're so slender.
Thank you.
It would just, if I were to just meet you, I would think, oh, she's just a slender woman. Yeah. So I guess what was your highest weight?
So that was probably my highest, and I think I was about 185.
Okay. Yeah. And then can you talk a little bit more about, I guess, the Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig, and why did you, because you ended up commenting that they weren't sustainable weight loss.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about why?
So in both of those programs, they reduce calories. It's a calorie-restricted program. It goes along with the belief that we've been told about calories in, calories out, eat less, move more. That has not worked. Look at what's happening to our society, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the same idea. They reduce you down to a certain level of calories, and most of them are based on about a 1,200 calorie program.
1,200?
A day. And
that's not very much food.
No, it's not. But, when you want to lose weight, you can do anything for a certain period of time. But what happens when you reduce calories down that much, you also lower your metabolism. So it's kind of like you go on a budget and you're trying to stay within that budget. Well, all of a sudden you start turning the lights off at the house. You start conserving how much water you're using. You start looking at the things you're spending money on and reduce it, right? So it's the same kind of thing with calories. All of a sudden you reduce those calories down. There's your low budget. Your body, which is a miracle, by the way, the complexities of our bodies are just miracles. So what it does is it lowers your metabolism. It says we're not getting the same amount of energy in, so we're going to reduce our energy requirements. And of course, the body has priorities for energy, which is to keep the blood pumping, the heart working, the brain functioning, all that. So there's a certain amount of calories that it needs every day. Right. So then you restrict it, and it will reduce the energy to what it needs. Then you get done, you get your weight off, you're feeling good, and you want to start eating more again, and you start eating more. But the metabolism doesn't return. So now you're going to gain weight back. That's called yo-yo dieting. That's what we've all done for many years now, and people are still doing. Yeah. Yeah.
And, just as you're kind of talking about that, there's that concept of triage, where they're just going to choose the absolute most important functions to put the energy toward.
Exactly.
So like you said, your heart beating, your brain functioning, these really like core survival things.
Yeah.
But then suddenly these other aspects of our health, like maybe our immune system or just our, the skin is a really big one that people think of largely just because it's what everyone sees.
Sure.
We can't exactly tell how our liver function is doing or how our whatever, things that are internal. But a lot of times those types of issues manifest in our skin, and it's just an example of one of those maybe like survival functions that starts to go.
Exactly.
And I get that question a lot in my health coaching where people will say, I'm doing this diet and it's great and I'm losing weight, but my skin.
Or my hair. Or all those things. Yeah.
So it's I think an important point to kind of give, when we talk about a 2,000 calorie diet, we're talking about supplying the body with all of this energy for a ton of different functions. Right. Once, if we're going to talk about calorie restriction, you can just start taking some of those less survival, crucial functions, and they'll just start to go, and people are getting sick more often or other health issues come.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess when was it that you became a nutrition coach and started to really delve into not just counting the calories, but maybe looking at where the calories are coming from?
Yeah. So I had gone through the latest trending program at the time. This was 2011. And I had actually lost weight with Jenny Craig, about 40 pounds. And this was the first time in my life I kept that weight off. It was 3 years of hell to keep that weight off. I kid you not. It was food diaries, calculating everything I ate, find out if I had enough whatever calories left to have a glass of wine, right? And then not have it if I didn't. It was obsessive compulsive, and it was the only way I could keep it off. Anyway, then I found this other program. I still had about 10 pounds I wanted to lose, so I started this other program. And this program is what started me on the keto journey, because it was a ketosis-based program, which means that you're converting your body from being a sugar burner to being a fat burner, fat being the fat you have stored, and dietary fat. So that program worked pretty well. But again, it was a program that is pre-packaged. It's set up. You don't think about anything. You don't learn anything as far as nutrition. So they have coaches in the program that help you and hopefully are educating you as you go through the program about ketosis, about food and nutrition, etc. So I did that program, and I thought it was the first one I'd really had that clicked. So I became a coach. I inquired, and they hired me in, and that's where I've been for 7.5 years, coaching people through the program. So for me, once I got my weight off and I was a coach, now I'm walking and talking it every day, so that made it a little easier, right? I am trying to inspire people and help them stay with what they're doing. But I was also struggling because that program also in their maintenance brings a lot of carbohydrates back, and you get these freedom to eat a free day. And, well, a lot of us are addicted to food. There's a big part of what goes on between emotional eating and addiction that isn't addressed in any of these programs. So I had to find another way to keep my weight down, and I wanted to stay with something that was a ketosis-based program. And through my research online, I came across keto. And this was back when there wasn't as much information as there is now. People were still thinking that was kind of a crazy idea. And because it was so similar to Atkins, I knew the concept, and I knew it was going to be the right thing. So I couldn't read enough or watch enough or study enough about it. And so I did real well with it. I started watching all of our patients coming back through our program for the second time because they'd lose their weight and gain their weight back. And so the doctor I work for he's very open-minded. He got involved with the keto as well as far as understanding it. And so what we started doing is showing people how to do keto after they got their weight off with the other program. And we started having success with that, a lot more success. And so, I mean, it would break my heart to see people come back in after losing 100 pounds and then gain it all back. So the keto program worked for many, many people. And then I started doing a little coaching as well at the office. If somebody didn't want to do the other program, then I would work with people for keto.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you talk about maybe some of the differences between Atkins and keto now that have experience with both?
Yeah. So the biggest difference is there's macros. There's percentage of the macros that you have or you should goal to have every day. With Atkins, it was eat these foods and you'll lose weight. Eat till you're satisfied. That's a hard one for people, especially if they are metabolically challenged and they're insulin resistant and leptin isn't working right for them, et cetera. So, but you can get there. So Atkins just said eat until you're satisfied and then don't eat again until you're hungry. But the foods themselves were basically the same. Whole foods. No processed foods. Get the sugar and the wheat out of your diet. Eat fatty foods. Eat real food, so whole cream. Get rid of the low fat, low sugar, all that. Right. So that's really the only difference. With what they've learned over the years is that dietary fat, is really key in the process, especially in the beginning, because it satiates us. So we're not as hungry. We don't require as much food. A lot of critics will say, well, there's no way you're eating way too many calories on that with all that fat. But what you find is that you maybe only eat twice a day. I can go from morning until 2, 3 o'clock sometimes without eating at all. And I don't even think about it because my body is what you would call a full-on fat burner. I'm completely adapted. So my body only uses fat as a resource for energy.
Okay. Yeah. And so at this time, are you still practicing, a fairly strict ketogenic diet? Very limited carbohydrates?
I do, yes. So the carbs I get are always from vegetables. I need to get my vegetables in, and we need to get those carbs. So that's the only place I get carbs for the most part. Occasionally I'll make a keto dessert to take to somebody's house or whatever, and I'll get a little of the extra carbs there. But for the most part, daily. I stick very close to it. My parents were both diabetics, and in the end lost their life to being diabetics. So I don't want to go down that road. And I also now have a sister who has been diabetic and fought me for years about keto and finally did it. And she's done fabulous.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about your parents.
Yeah. And, they got diabetes late in life, and in those days it was called adult onset diabetes. That's where most people got diabetes, was late in life. And now it's not true anymore.
Right.
We see it every day.
Yeah. And actually that adult onset diabetes, they had to change the name to type 2 because children were developing
and now
diabetes.
more than ever. Now more than ever. Yeah.
So from the perspective of, somebody out there who's maybe had a similar journey, I think this yo-yo dieting and trying all of the different diets is something that a lot of us have done.
Sure.
What, I guess, guidance maybe could you offer to them or motivation? Because once you've gone through that process of losing weight and then it comes back, it can be really difficult to be like, okay, well, now I'm going to try it again.
Yes, exactly. So that's really part of the coaching aspect of it. And I deal with people every day like that, right? That it's, for me, it's a lot of things. So it's helping them to understand that they're human. They're going to make some mistakes. They beat themselves up so bad whenever they fall off the program. So it's about understanding to accept it, to give yourself permission, to love yourself through it, to stand up for yourself, because once people find out you're trying to take control, there's a lot of saboteurs. There's a lot of people who love us with food, and they don't understand how you can not eat something that they've made special for you. Even though you've told them this is not something you can have, they'll make that for you just because they love you and they know you want that, right?
Right.
So that's the biggest thing. I think people struggle with their social activities and their culture and their families. It's the hardest part.
Yeah. And certainly that element of, our access to those foods it's so simple and they're so cheap,
Yes.
So there really does have to be a strong sense of purpose, to say, I'm going to make the decision to not stop at one of these 20 different fast food restaurants on the way home.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of discussion about that. It's about keeping your goal right in the forefront. You have to always remember what it is when you're up against temptations and how to deal with that. Walk away from that. If you know you're going in ahead of time, take something with you that you can have so that you're not feeling deprived. It's all those pitfalls that happen to us every day. And yes, it's all the fast food restaurants. I think that's been another big part of the epidemic that we have now is all the fast food restaurants.
Right.
We can still eat in them, but we have to make really good, careful choices and not be afraid to ask, well, what's in that?
Right.
Is there fillers in that or whatever? Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Can you talk a little bit about what the ketogenic diet looks like for you in terms of, what you're eating on a regular basis? Or I get a lot of questions from people, what do I eat if I stop eating carbs?
Yeah, that's for sure. Because, our whole lives are based on that now, especially eating out. We all eat out now. People don't cook so much anymore. So my diet consists of meat, fish, eggs, vegetables, mostly the lower glycemic vegetables, and natural fats. With occasionally I'll have, and especially now where I'm in a maintenance mode, I will have some berries, but it's not high on my list. And I think everybody has to decide that for themselves. If you're trying to lose weight, you really have to keep the fruit out because fruit is fructose and it will make you a sugar burner again really fast. Once you get into a maintenance level, you can decide how much you want to bring your carb up a little bit. So you could have that. So for me, I stay away from the fruit except for special occasions. And that's mostly because I do have a strong background of family with diabetes and I don't want to go down that road.
Right.
So fats are a big, important part of it. Natural fats. There are no vegetable fats in my life. I have done enough research on what happens and how natural how the vegetable fats come into our grocery store, the kinds of things they do to it, the treatments they put them through, the solvents that
like
they're...
vegetable oils
Yes,
and Crisco
yes,
and
all
this kind
that,
of thing.
all that. And I'm cringe at how many times I've used Crisco in my life, knowing now. But mostly what we're looking for is natural fats. So you can get it through food, things like avocados and eggs and nuts. And then you can also get it through, of course, dairy has good fats. Our meat has good fats. And you could actually do keto without saturated fats. I know a lot of people are still afraid of the saturated fats or just have a strong belief it's not good for them. That's fine. If you have a strong belief that you don't want to eat animals and the cruelty of animals, then you can do it as a vegetarian. There's some really good books out there. There's one particular doctor I follow for that. His name is Dr. Will Cole. I believe he's in Pennsylvania. He's a functional doctor, and his whole thing is plant-based. I mean, he also likes keto for the other side of it with the meat, but he's just written a book last year called Ketotarian. And it's great. So it allows the vegetarians to stay with their belief system, but add the fat in. Get that fat in, get into ketosis. Yeah.
Right. So being a sugar burner, being a fat burner, you know, our bodies opt for the easiest path,
Always.
which is going to be burning that sugar in the bloodstream.
Right.
So getting into a state of ketosis where you're actually going to limit that sugar in your bloodstream to such an extent that the body's forced to burn all of the stored energy in our fat cells. What, I guess, maybe goes into that process? Or is it as simple as just removing the carbs from your diet? Or are there other elements that go into helping to put your body into ketosis?
So the first and foremost thing is just to eliminate the foods that will turn to glucose in your stomach and then move into the bloodstream. Okay, so it takes several days, just that first initial process, for your body to burn off whatever glucose is still there, and then decide to go ahead and convert over to fat. Your body likes fat. It wants to burn fat as fuel, both, again, stored fat and dietary fat. It's actually the way we were meant to live, right? So it's not a harmful thing to take the sugar out, but whenever you eat sugar, it's going to immediately grab that first. It's going to take that and convert it and use it for energy. Problem is we eat so much of it now that it can't use it up, so it gets stored. So the first few days of getting into ketosis, it can be a little rough, especially if you are coming from a pretty high carb diet. But after 3 to 5 days, usually, we start to see production of ketones, usually through the urine, and you're on your way. You may have some complications in that process. They call it the Keto Flu. What it really comes down to is as your liver starts to use the fat and convert it to ketones, your kidneys then start to release extra fluid that it retains, and along with it goes sodium, potassium, magnesium, and so that can make you feel not so good. Usually you can just get through the first few days using plenty of salt. I always say sea salt. Using plenty of salt. If you need to add some magnesium, you can, but once you get converted completely over to ketosis, then some of that should go away. Now, there are people who use those supplements throughout for the rest of their life, and that's okay too. We're all different, and we have to figure out what works for each of us.
Right.
So, yeah.
And then I see a lot of exogenous ketone type of products where you would actually take ketones. What are your feelings on that?
Okay, well, I have some good feelings on that. So I've done a lot of research on it. I even bought them at one time to try them out. I'm always experimenting with all the newest stuff. And then did a lot of research on it. And the keto community is 50-50 on it. My feelings is that if I want to lose weight, I want to burn my own ketones. I don't want to bring ketones in. I want to produce my own. And if my body is in the right place as far as the food I'm taking in, then it's going to make its own ketones. So I don't want to do exogenous. I think the people that like the exogenous are bodybuilders, and they may need that, right? So they're doing intense exercise, and so adding some ketones in helps them.
Right.
The unfortunate part is that the other side of it is people want to go out on the weekend and party and drink their beer and have their carbs, and then they don't want to suffer through the keto flu again, so they take the exogenous ketones, which help them to not have the possible headaches and the brain fog, and those are the things that come from getting into ketosis, right? So there's that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then in that situation where they want to splurge for the weekend and then take the exogenous ketones, does it effectively put you into ketosis?
If you were to read your ketones, it would possibly show that you're in ketosis, but you're not burning your own. You're just taking in ketones to help your body get there, right? But you got to ask yourself, what's the point of that? You know, really. It's about compliance and commitment. It's about understanding your body and all the good things you're doing, because keto is not a diet. It is a lifestyle, and it's a commitment to a lifestyle that says, I want everything in my body to work the way it's supposed to, work really well. Even the things that are damaged from yo-yo dieting, for me, it's, of course, hormonal. It's the overuse of antibiotics and steroids in the 80s, and those kinds of things, they break us. That hurts us in our metabolism and our metabolic structure. So keto actually can help to heal a lot of those things, a lot of the pathways that get shut down in our bodies, the sensors and the hormones that are not working so well. As we move through the commitment of keto, a lot of those things will correct themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to, I guess, maybe some of the other health benefits you've experienced from keto? We had a guest on actually yesterday, and we were just talking in general about insulin and insulin's effect on the body. And then so anytime we have sugar in the bloodstream, we're releasing insulin to try and handle that.
Right.
And just the presence of insulin puts us into the fight or flight stress response, the sympathetic state. Presence of insulin has been shown to prevent the body from burning fat. So I just am curious to know, since adopting that ketogenic diet, have there been other health benefits that you've observed?
So one of the main benefits I feel I'm getting is that I don't get sick like I used to get sick. One of my best examples is a year and a half ago, Christmas time, flu was everywhere, and I'm in a medical office, so of course, we see a lot of it. And that we all left for our Christmas break, and I hadn't had my flu shot yet. And I had just discussed with my doctor, I'll get it as soon as we get back from Christmas. And that very night, I came down with the flu. Well, I didn't know it until we got back from Christmas, but half the office was sick with the flu. Well, I was sick for 1.5 days, and I was back on my feet and felt great. Everybody else in the office sick, and I had the type A, which was the highest, worst flu. Everybody else in the office was wiped out for 2-3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
They were so sick with the flu, and I didn't have any problem. So I believe that my immune system is stronger for being on keto, and that was an eye opener for me. And there's no doubt in my mind. So I think that overall I'm stronger that way. I believe that I also do a little bit of intermittent fasting and some extended fasting, and I think there's a lot of benefits to that as well. Same kind of thing. But insulin, the issues of insulin is a very serious one, and it's the reason for obesity. The number one reason why people are obese is insulin, because of what the effects are on our body. Yeah.
And then, just thinking about, diabetes as kind of the ultimate manifestation of insulin resistance and insulin just being far too high for the body to handle.
Right.
I mean, there's all kinds of different complications that result from diabetes.
Exactly.
So,
well, and really what it's resulting from is insulin, right? So when people are diagnosed with diabetes, they've been diabetic for a long time. But their blood work numbers hadn't got them to that number that says confirm, yes, you are. But they have been. They've been pre-diabetic for a long time. So this is something that's been going on in their bodies for a very long time. So the insulin, the way in which we approach that is we call it a progressive disease that there's no cure from. So we're going to try and hold it back as long as we can. So you can reverse type 2 diabetes, and let's be clear, so type 1 is a whole different disease, so to speak. So type 2 diabetes can be reversed. You can get your numbers down. You can actually get off all the medications and live a good, healthy life. But because of the way we treat diabetes, we start with medication, right? And then eventually you have to have more medication because of the insulin resistance, because the insulin's not doing what it's supposed to do because the blood sugar is so high. What we really do is treat our blood sugar. That's the symptom. We don't treat why is it high, right? So insulin gets higher and higher. We take more medication, more insulin, and the problem is when the blood sugars are that high in your system, they are attacking your eyes, they're attacking the kidneys, they're attacking the liver. We end up with fatty liver. Often chronic kidney disease comes from that. Blindness, amputation, we get neuropathy, the little vessels in our bloodstream start getting clogged up, and heart. So many people that end up with diabetes end up with the heart problems. Right? So
now you'd mentioned intermittent fasting and some extended fasting. Can you speak about that a little bit?
I can do a little of it. Yes. So I thought that was something I would never be able to do. So I had some people in the office, some of the employees, and we decided we were going to try it. I have one person in particular that fasts all the time for religious reasons. And so we started studying up on fasting and decided we'd go for it. But we were going to just do it a day at a time, see how far we could go. Well, the three of us ended up doing a 7-day fast. And I have to say it was really a wonderful experience. You really get in touch with your body. You really get to a point where you can start listening to what's really going on. Is that hunger? What happens if I get hunger? You don't die if you get hunger. You get a little uncomfortable rumbling in your stomach, but it's all good. It was really a good experience. So I've done 2 extended fasts, one 8-day, one 7. But mostly I just do intermittent fasting. And so for me, that's a certain window of time that I eat every day. It's a feeding time. For me, it's 8 hours. So 16 hours a day, I don't eat anything. I can have coffee, I can have water, and I can have some broth. I usually use the broth to get some sodium in there if I'm feeling like I need a little extra sodium, but otherwise... And what I find is my window usually ends around noon, but it's often 2 or 3 o'clock before I eat. So I really go a little longer than that.
So you're going like 18 or 19 hours.
Yeah. And, again, there's a lot of information out in the world about fasting. I have one source that I trust for everything fasting. Others are very good, and people know, but if I don't know for sure, I go to that one source because he's fairly renowned for all his work with fasting. And he has a huge clinic, and people are going to for help with not just keto, but for fasting. That's his thing. And his name is Dr. Jason Fung, and he has a great organization up in Canada. Okay. So, yeah, I believe in fasting. Fasting, once you get past a certain time, they used to say it was 16 hours. Everybody says something different. But the idea of it is when you reduce the digestive process, when your digestive system gets to rest, when you're not pumping insulin out or doing all that, your body gets to come in and kind of clean up and do some things. So there's things like they call it mTOR and autophagy. These are means in which your body cleans its dead cells out, which allows the good cells to multiply and get healthier. And so that's all the benefits of fasting.
Right.
But I don't go too far that way. I just try to stick to a 16-8 most days.
Right. And I think it's important, because when a lot of people come to me and I think I might try a fast, or I've been reading a lot about fasting. I think it's just important to kind of put into context, if you are somebody who's eating, we think every 4 hours is kind of the standard. But a lot of people are maybe eating more often than that, or they're snacking between meals,
right,
or they're doing other things that are increasing their blood sugar significantly in between those times. So whether it's, sipping on sodas, eating candies, and then even something like potato chips, or, a lot of times people are just thinking that it's sweets. I think now people are learning more that those starches, those carbohydrates, those are going to elevate your blood sugar as well.
Yes.
So people that are just sitting there like eating potato chips or whatever, they're also not only getting those bad fried foods,
right,
but they're cranking up their blood sugar over and over.
And they're also causing their digestive tract to continually be working, right? Even if you're eating keto. I mean, a lot of people do keto and they eat every hour or two, and they're sure that they need to. But that's called snacking. That's called habits. That's called sometimes emotional issues or boredom, right? So you have to deal with that as well. Even with keto, the whole idea of keto is you eat when you're hungry, and then you don't eat again until you're hungry. But you have to ask yourself, am I really hungry? A lot of times, a couple hours later, you think you're hungry, but you're really not. Sometimes a glass of water, sometimes a carbonated beverage like a water, Topo Chico or something like that. And that'll take you right on by it. You're not really hungry. There's no way you're really hungry 2 hours after eating eggs and bacon. And it's not going to happen. There's no carb there. So, yeah.
So, just this element of, looking at how long you're going in between meals or snacks and just working to extend that period.
Right.
So if you're somebody who's eating every 4 hours and maybe snacking in between or doing these other things, the idea of then fasting for 16 hours is going to be pretty alarming.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, and I this is the funny part. I always tell people, especially if they're just coming in or just starting to get them into ketosis and all, they always want to know about fasting. And I always say, it's a great thing to do, and you're going to get a lot of benefit from it, but let's first just get you settled into the foods you're eating and how you're feeling with those foods, and start to listen to your body a little bit. And then we're going to do some fasting a few weeks down the road. And it never fails, they'll come back in the next week and, well, I went ahead and started fasting. The problem with that is that there's steps. You got to really understand what's happening in your body and how you're feeling. But I think that fasting is super hard if you're a sugar burner. I mean, you're going to go through a lot of hunger pains and shaky issues and blood sugar issues, right?
Right.
If you are a sugar burner. So I think it's always best, if you are going to do a keto diet, do it, get into it, really understand it. Even with keto, there's no requirement of breakfast, lunch, dinner. That's we don't even know where that came from, right? Why do we eat 3 meals a day? Breakfast is really just breaking your fast from sleeping and getting up in the day. So breakfast could be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? There's no time frame. It's 8 a.m. I got to have my breakfast. So it's understanding that you eat when you're hungry and no snacking. I mean, we all have those occasions where time-wise we get a little off and we feel like we need something. But for the most part, it's not a snacking program. It's eat wonderful, delicious whole foods. It's the best, really. It's the best way to eat. Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to maybe some of the common obstacles that you observe in the people that you're coaching, or yourself if you want to offer that too?
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that now you've had almost a decade of experience with coaching other people through these diets. So I'm just curious, like maybe what are some of the common obstacles and solutions that seem to appear a lot?
So what I hear the most is, well, it was my birthday. Like somehow that, made it, there's something connected to having cake for your birthday, right? Or somebody made this special thing for me and I didn't feel like I could say no, right? It's social pressures. You're out with friends and they're all drinking and they're all, there's beer time and it's, junk food time. And those are really hard times to get through, especially in the beginning. So for things like your birthday, to me, I try to help them understand that it's about gathering with people that you love and spending time. Start connecting. Start talking to people instead of enjoying this piece of cake. They can still eat the cake, but you can still enjoy them. Have something that you like with you. So, it could be a Topo Chico. It could be some salami and cheese. It could be
a keto-friendly birthday cake.
Yeah, well, that's it for sure, but most people aren't going to go to that extreme. But yes, there's... If it's a craving, it's make yourself something that you really like as a special treat. There's keto cookies and keto muffins and keto everything, and the recipes are easy and they're really quite good. So yes, if you needed to do that, but I always like to point out that food's just food, and the real idea of celebrating is to celebrate the person or whatever's going on there. Even at the holidays, it's about enjoying your family and your friends, and you can still have food there that you love and enjoy. It's not like you're in any means not able to eat most of it, right?
Right.
So even potatoes. I mean, there's cauliflower mashed potatoes. I'm telling you, it's pretty darn good.
Well, I just think it's interesting. You really touched on something that I think all of us can identify with, and it's that, at those times of celebration or holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, it's almost like we have I don't know, because I know even for myself, I feel compelled to eat a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Or on your birthday, you feel almost compelled to splurge and do something that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of speaks to something that you mentioned a little earlier, which is our emotional connection with food.
Sure.
And maybe that there's a certain point where the food is less about the calories or the satisfaction that we get from it or whatever, and it's more about the emotional satisfaction that we get when we are eating a huge amount of food.
It's also about the poor me. I'm so deprived. Look at everybody else gets to eat that, and I can't have it, right? So that's a word that we try to get rid of. It's not that you can't have it. You can. You can. You choose not to. Because, and I think a lot of it comes down, for me, what helped me the most was understanding what's going on in my body. What's going to happen when I eat that particular food product that is going to turn to sugar in my body? What's going to happen? And once you start to really understand that, it's kind of like you're going this way, and all of a sudden you're going to go that way, right? And I don't want to go back. I don't want to. That one piece of cake is not going to be worth 2 days of getting myself straightened back out with my ketosis and getting back on track. Having gained water weight because of the carb factor, and then my kidneys have to get rid of that again. It's just not worth it. Again, if it's super important, then I bring my own keto stuff, for sure. Yeah, in fact, we did that at Easter. I think I made keto cheesecakes, little muffin-sized keto cheesecake, and they were delicious, and I didn't feel deprived at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and it, maybe that speaks to another thing, which is just being prepared.
Absolutely.
And that's something that comes up no matter what diet you're doing. There's going to end up being a situation where you're short on time and you're really hungry and all these pressures and all of these things and all of these excuses that you can make for yourself.
Right. And that's what they are. They're excuses. So we go over that a lot. I have certain little products that I introduce to people. Keep this in your purse. Keep this in your desk drawer. There's no reason that you have to go ahead and eat that. And the bottom line is, if you don't have it, then you're going to be hungry until you get to where you can have some food, right? You are not going to pass out. You're not doing any damage to your body. In fact, if anything, you're doing yourself some favor to let your body just be hungry and let that insulin really drop as low as possible. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
always about prepared.
Right. And you kind of had mentioned earlier, that there's several different cultures that use fasting, whether it's in a religious sense or, so it's something that, here in the States, it's becoming a fad now of fasting. Yeah. But the health benefits of fasting have been really long known by a lot of different cultures. And we're, I think, one of the only countries that really puts the emphasis on eating as much as you want, being satisfied as much as you want, foods that are designed with really zero nutritional concerns in mind. They're really just designed to taste good and be satisfying.
Right. To be addictive. I mean, truly, they are, they're made to be addictive.
Yeah.
And the more we eat, the more we want of it. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we never, unfortunately, once you've gotten to a point where you're insulin resistant, maybe even sooner than that, once you get there, your leptin breaks, right? The leptin is your hormone that says, oh, I'm satisfied, you're satisfied, you've had enough, you can stop eating. And that's the difference between somebody who does that and somebody who says, I just finished a gigantic meal and it's an hour later and I'm starving. Mm-hmm. Well, they don't know. It's broken, right? And that comes from the insulin. The insulin is really the problem for the whole thing. I mean, it is the reason so many things go wrong in our bodies because too much insulin.
Well, Jill, I am so grateful to you for coming and sharing all of
Me.
this. Do you have any, closing thoughts or inspirations for somebody who might be interested in trying out a ketogenic diet?
I think I would say to really do your research. Find someone who is successful with it. Get a buddy and really do your research because my concern now is that it's trending so much that people are doing this keto diet, but the first thing they do is they want to make all the cookies and the candy and the fat bombs and all these things. And it's really about learning how to eat real food, whole foods, and save those things for later. Really start getting in touch with what it means to eat this way and the ingredients in food. If I could say anything, it's about ingredients. So that's my other little pet peeve is that now, because it's so popular, we're seeing all kinds of things on the market, right? I just saw a commercial the other night for Slim Fast, Keto Slim Fast. I can guarantee you there's nothing keto about Keto Slim Fast. I guarantee it. And why is that? Because it's going to be loaded with preservatives and chemicals, and a lot of those things are not keto. Right. So I always tell people, if you're going to do this, start looking at ingredients. If there's an ingredient you don't know, Google it up. I often stand in the grocery store and I'm Googling what is this and is it keto friendly before I purchase it, because the food companies have really put a lot of things in our food that's not good. And now that everybody wants to go keto, so just buyer beware and really think about what you're doing. Make it important. Right. I have a lot of things I show my clients that are the things that are approved. So there are some good things out there on the market that people are putting out there, but you got to know. Yeah.
And I saw you have a big goodie bag with you, so maybe in our next podcast we can actually look at some of those foods.
I'd love to share those and why they're good.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I think it's interesting you mentioned the Slim Fast. I'm sure that it's loaded with the artificial sweeteners.
I'm sure.
And that's something that I see really, really commonly in the different foods that are marketed for keto.
Right.
They're actually going to contain the aspartame or acesulfame potassium.
Maltodextrin, dextrose, all kinds of things. And that's not what it's about. Keto is really about eating real food, whole food. And that's really the reason we have so much trouble today is that processed food, industrialized food out there. Everybody wants something quick and easy. You buy these frozen things. So here's my other little pet peeve. Cauliflower, right? Cauliflower rice, that's great. We like that. But then there became cauliflower pizza crust. Okay. So I hear this all the time. Oh, I bought this cauliflower pizza crust at the freezer, in the freezer section. It's so great because they think they're doing something good for themselves. But when you really look at it, it's so loaded with preservatives and hidden sugars. And so it's not good.
Right.
But I did bring one that I will show to you in the next podcast that I really like. Yeah.
Awesome. So are there any, we know that the artificial sweeteners have a lot of problems with them. But
there are some good ones.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit about, I guess, what are the ketogenic friendly sweeteners that people can use?
Okay. So there's a couple that are the best. And so one would be stevia, preferably in a liquid form, because now you're getting just the pure stevia extract. A lot of the little packets that we see in the restaurants and stuff, they have maltodextrin and dextrose and some other things in it that they're not good for us. They're actually carb. So you can get a blood sugar hit from that. So stevia is good. Erythritol is good. It comes in several different forms. You can just buy erythritol. It's powdered. It comes in a product, I believe they pronounce it Sorbet. I could be wrong on that, but they comes granular or powdered. Great for baking. And a lot of the recipes that we use in keto have a requirement for that. Monk fruit is also another good one. Okay. But there's a lot of them that can actually be high enough glycemic that we get a hit from it. And once that insulin rises, then our ketones go down.
Right. Is there a way to know if you've spiked your insulin?
Yes. I actually brought that with me today, too. There's monitors you can get that, and I love my monitor. It does both glucose and ketones. So it just has a different strip that I use for what I'm looking for. And what's nice about that is the strips for ketones are about $1 each, so you can get a little container of those. Amazon has them, and it's a really easy way to get it. But sometimes I know I'm in ketosis. I don't necessarily need to know what level I'm at. But if I eat something, I'm sensitive enough now. When I eat something, I can almost tell an hour later, I'm thinking that might have had something, or my body reacted to it. Doesn't mean it was necessarily bad. So I can do a blood check right there, a glucose check, and see where it's at. So that's like so informative and helps people to understand. It's like, for instance, wine. So wine is something that is allowed on keto. It's, we have to be careful not to be abusive with it. But, a glass of wine with dinner here and there. Some people get away with a glass every day. Some people don't. And how do we know? We have to test our blood glucose. And so I can get away with a 5-ounce glass of red wine pretty much every night. It's hard for me to only drink a 5-ounce glass of wine. So I have to be careful. I tend to try to keep my wine drinking to the weekend. And often just if I'm out with friends and we're having a meal or just out to have a drink, then that's when I'll do my wine. So I'm not drinking it every day. It's also empty calories. And,
right. Right, and the other negative effects of the alcohol, but whatever.
Well, and in a keto kind of a lifestyle, the other negatives are things like lowering your resistance to stay on program. So you have some wine, and then all of a sudden you're looking for something yummy to eat with it, and depending on where you're at and what's going on, you might well eat some things that you wouldn't normally eat.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So where would you say, for people who maybe are listening that have also done a lot of the yo-yo dieting, is there anything that you can do to help, repair the body after a lot of yo-yo dieting?
Keto. I'm not kidding. Now, keto will repair a lot of that stuff. In the keto process, you can actually improve your metabolism. There's not another way to do that. But through eating in a good, clean keto lifestyle, you're going to be able to add more food, and metabolism will come up for sure.
Wow.
And so many other things. So autoimmune issues, which are all linked to the sugars, the preservatives in our foods, and all. Once you get all that out of there, people are seeing benefits in a lot of their autoimmune issues, things like PCOS. They're using that now for it. It's good for neuro kinds of issues. A lot of people with depression suffer with even bipolar, are looking into using a keto lifestyle, of course, with their doctors. I would never recommend somebody just go off all their medications, but get with your doctor and find how you do that. Same with even type 1 diabetics now are using ketogenic, but again, I would never recommend a type 1 just trying it on their own. They need to get with the doctor and start really looking at how to move into that so that they can get off some of their meds.
Right.
Epilepsy, that's what it was first for. 1920s, they used keto diet for children with epilepsy. So, and today, more than ever, now we're using it.
Yeah, I
So-
know somebody that's been doing a ketogenic diet to handle her epilepsy for
so
several years now.
to control it, absolutely. So what does that tell you? I mean, there's so many links to that. Cancer now, big research going on with cancer using keto in lots of ways. So if you're keto adapted in nutritional ketosis and you have to go through chemo, what they're finding is they don't need to do nearly as much chemo. They don't. You don't have to do it as long, and the benefits, the results are faster if you're keto adapted. However, there's very few hospitals out there that will feed you keto, right? So I don't know how. You have to find the place, the oncologist, et cetera, and they're out there now, and there's more and more research being done on it. Used to be a place in North Austin. It was a sanctuary for dogs, and they set it up to just for that very reason. So they went to kill centers and they got dogs who had cancer, lots of different kinds of cancers, and they brought them in. They signed them over to them, and they brought them into their center, and they fed them a ketogenic diet, as well as other protocols to go along with it. But the ketogenic was a big part of it. And they cured, I think it was 12 of the 15 dogs were actually cured.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, cured. I mean, completely gone. So we know there's applications. It's about getting more and more research, more and more trials, understanding. It's not just about going on a keto diet and you'll never have cancer. It's about applying that nutritional process to the other things that they do with these protocols to heal people. There's a wonderful organization, a woman whose young son had brain cancer. And she's on, I should have brought the name of her, maybe I'll pass that on for notes, but she was determined to get her son healed. So she wanted him on a ketogenic diet. She had done her research. And in working with the team of all the specialists and the oncology group, they found a way to do that. And he survived and is alive today and wasn't supposed to live. So we know there's so much now. It's exciting to see all the things that are coming about because of this way of eating.
Right.
We know the processed foods, the chemicals, the sugars, the wheats are not good. I mean, think about wheat and soy. Everybody gets excited because they see something that says it has soy in it. Soy is GMO'd. It's not good for us. So it's about understanding that. Yeah, it's an exciting time.
Well, thank you so much for
Thanks for
joining me
having
here
me.
today. It was lovely chatting with you,
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I want to thank all of you for tuning in today. I truly hope that you have enjoyed this podcast, and I hope that you are feeling empowered to maybe try out a different diet or even consider trying a ketogenic diet. Thank you again for being here. I hope you will join us again soon and maybe consider supporting us on Patreon to help us continue creating this content. Thank you so much for listening and join us again soon.
We're the only country in the world that separates the mind from the body. Yeah, the only country.
I'm joined today by Athena Jezik, Ed Norden, Robert Gardner, Dr. Paula Bruno.
The body has a natural ability and tendency to want to heal.
It doesn't have to be complicated or costly.
I can talk science. Yeah, we'll talk science for sure.
You do often need to supplement with magnesium. Unbalanced life.
Vitally important to make sure that the entire system is opened up.
Actually, happiness and suffering are states of mind. They're not external things.
Do you have any recommendations for our listeners?
Use a tennis ball.
Try a HIIT workout. You only got to do 20 minutes.
Every day, having a practice for yourself.
We're not powerless,
Right.
to improve our situation.
Welcome to the WellnessPlus Podcast.
If you'd like to see our premium yoga content, including 30-day programs and so much more, download Yoga Plus by PsycheTruth. It's available for Android and iPhone. You'll find links in the description of this video.